Is it okay if I talk a little bit about the what's happening in the body with the refeeding syndrome?
I just don't feel like you have really good descriptive ways of saying these things medically. Absolutely not. Yeah, let's dig into it and kind of look at it. So let's look at the laboratory values. What is refeeding syndrome? What's the gist of it, so that people understand what can happen. Welcome to the RD Roadmap: Journey to Eating Disorder Expertise. This is episode 10, Navigating the Rocky Path of Medical Complications, Part 4. My name is Jill Sakey, registered dietitian.
My name is Matheus Milhomes, registered dietitian.
All right, and we have to kind of talk first of all. Where's Mateos right now? So I'd love for you to start there a little bit. I'm still in my office in Colorado with my cow pictures and one horse behind me, but I think you're in a really cool environment. So we have to kind of talk about that.
Yes, I am in Rio today,
Ah,
and this is the
wow.
view. Very pretty.
Just absolutely jealous, and birds flying by.
Yeah,
Ah, so
I am in a very peaceful environment today.
I know. I think all your clients say that you're a nomad dietitian, I think. Always in different places and all of that. So that's the beauty of virtual work, though, for sure. So exciting. So yeah.
Yeah,
Well, so glad to have y'all here. And I think this will be the kind of the last installment of our medical complications. And, the video piece of it, we're going to talk a little bit more about. We're going to talk more in the back end of refeeding syndrome and underfeeding syndrome. So we'll talk in large depth of that. But I thought we could start a little bit about what we experience as an outpatient provider, in particular, of how frequently you see refeeding syndrome or underfeeding syndrome, and kind of the challenges that happen with working outpatient, because sometimes you're working not really with a full informed team, with a medical doctor and therapist and dietitian and psychiatrists who really know eating disorders. And so sometimes as the dietitian, you're the one ordering the labs and you're the one concerned about this. And so there's so many things that we're looking at. And that can be pretty frustrating sometimes when you have other team members who really aren't on board with, oh, I'm not too worried about that, or not too worried about these symptoms or concerns. And or they get labs done, or they're looking at past labs and they all look normal. So I thought we can kind of start with that piece of it before we go in depth on the back end with laboratory values and what we're looking for, and how to be aware of them. So I don't know. I think when I think of this piece of it, it's, for thinking about the journey and traveling and all of those, it's as a team, you're trying to find out, or I don't know if you've done this when you're hiking, like, what trail am I going to take? Where am I going to go today? And so, I know in Colorado, there's trails that are a mile, there's trails that are 10 miles, and, there's elevation gains, and there's, more intense type of hiking trails and more modified ones. And so, when you're working as a team together, and you're trying to go on a hike with someone, everyone has their opinion of what they can tolerate. If I can go a little faster, or kind of have, do I have the equipment that I need to kind of take some of these trails that are a little bit more rocky, and all of those things. So that's what makes me think about, kind of when you begin the refeeding process, is like, you have to have a sense of like where you're going and what trail you're taking. And then trying to get the whole team on board with this, that they really understand that there can be some pretty rocky things that happen during that process of refeeding, i.e. hiking something. And so we have to kind of take that all into consideration. So yeah, I don't know, Mateus, what do
yeah.
you think?
It, it makes me think of two words: fear and confusion.
Mhm.
I think that um, as someone that has been in the field for a shorter period of time, and I was, a lot more familiar with hospitals and things like that. Hospitals, there is a concern for refeeding, and you can be checking the patient's blood every day,
Mhm.
twice a day, depending on the scenario. If you're managing a TPN, that's part of the protocols to have all that checked very, very frequently. And it's a lot easier to replace and all those things. So I think that it came in with a lot of fear of like, what if, because let's be honest, in that beginning, the nutritional piece is like the main thing that needs to happen, and it can be potentially deadly,
Mhm.
if you do. I think working in hospitals, we all heard of stories of people that died of refeeding syndrome and how, devastating that can be. So I really like the analogy of the trying to figure out the path forward.
Mhm.
And I think it can be anxious. It can be an anxious process of what to pack, because you're not really entirely sure of what's waiting for you. So to me, it's like kind of going through a hike that's not very well paved and doesn't have a lot of signs. It doesn't have clear direction.
You know,
That's
I
what
just,
what comes up to me.
yeah, I was on a hike this weekend and it's about a 5 miler. So I've been on it once before, and the person we were with, that was new for them, and I knew we could do it all together. But there is some kind of hairy pieces, and especially when you have a dog that you're also trying to navigate through. But there's the parts that you're literally is a cliff down, and it's not like hairline, but you're just trying to get through a couple of parts like that. And so so when you're getting to it, you get anxious, like, oh crud, here it comes. This part that I just need to kind of walk through. And what had happened that day, the night before, it had rained. And so I was like, okay, I've done this path before, but now it was raining and these rocks can get slippery. And so those two sections of that trail, I could handle the part that goes uphill. That's pretty challenging cardiovascularly. But I was really worried about what if we slip and fall, and really hurt ourselves. So I feel like that's a little bit of what it's like to work with clients. I mean, you can see client after client, they have similar presentations, but their bodies can react differently. That you may have someone who's starting at this level, who's lost this much weight, or they've been in their eating disorder this long, versus someone else who you just, you know, maybe during COVID, for example, where they lost weight more rapidly and they're coming in with a different presentation. And so, yeah, I love that concept of like, it can get very, very anxiety provoking and fear of like what could happen, even if you've been like, for me, I've been in this field for a long time and I've seen a lot of scenarios and cases, but the refeeding process still is a little anxiety provoking for me. So I can imagine too, when you haven't been here as long, that you might not have seen as many cases, but I do think that they can definitely all have some rocky pathways associated with them. We just don't know sometimes. So we have to kind of make our best case judgments and really do our due diligence to make sure things are in place before we start the whole process of, adding energy and food back on.
Yeah. And I think that the podcast today is going to be very helpful in that regard, because what I I'm an anxious hiker. I'm always thinking about all the possibilities. I'm the one that has a snake bite kit in the backpack for it's been here for 5 years untouched, but what if? I have a med kit, I have a tracking towel, I have I have flashlights, I have power banks, so I end up, first of all, like hanging out too long before the hike, packing all this stuff, and the hike tends to be slower than you need it to be because I'm carrying too many things and I spend too much time, trying to prepare for it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, totally. They were making fun of me because we have a little pocket on the camelback that we have, and I was putting on, like I had just bought my husband one of those like fire starters. I'm like, oh, let's put this in here. And then the people I were with are like, it's really wet out there. I don't really think we're gonna be able to start a fire with all the wet that's there, you know? So they were just like making fun of me. I'm like, well, I'm like, I don't like it's in here, like let's get it packed. So the next time we be hiking, and we've done it before. So they're like, we've done this before. We know exactly where we're going. I'm like, you never know what could happen. So definitely understand the anxiety piece of it and an overpacking piece. So well, that can lead to the essence of underfeeding, I think, which is probably more common, right? More over preparedness and preparation, and it really is it's too much, whereas the refeeding is probably a little less common. That actually is less common, and so we're going to talk a little bit more about why that is, and how do we prevent that, although both are actually pretty serious, right, when you're engaging in both of those. And so I know for me, I did not learn a lot about underfeeding syndrome, right? I was always about hyper vigilant about the refeeding syndrome. And so those very much are things we have to look at. But I think on an outpatient basis, a lot of times what people get stuck in is the underfeeding syndrome, which is the over preparation, or not going fast enough. Maybe you're doing a 5 mile hike and you start too late, that's dangerous, right? When you start too late on a long hike, right? Because you might end up in a rainstorm, or not get back in time with the light, not enough light and stuff. So I think we really have to dig into
And you
that.
just get depleted
Yeah.
before you make enough headway. You just I think a burnout for
Yes.
everybody involved.
Yeah.
I think a burnout for the caregivers, for the team, because you just hang out in the very, very turbulent part of the process for a lot longer than
Mhm.
it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, a good point, where, you didn't bring enough snacks with you, you didn't bring enough fuel, you're exhausted and tired, you've already had half the day to do things, those various things. And so, yeah, you can really delve into a lot of that burnout and exhaustion on everyone's part. And so, yeah, so we'll have to really dig into all those things as well. So, all righty. Well, I hope this was a good overview of what's to come on the back end, and we hope to have you there shortly. So look forward to seeing you soon.